Hey everyone, welcome back to Brian's Mysteries and Adventures on Trail. If you are watching this video today, I just wanted to wish everybody a very happy Valentine's Day. And for those of you that are watching it another day, hope you're having a great day or week. Today we are going back to March 14th of 2014. We're going to be discussing a doctor by the name of James, or he went by Jim McGrogan. Now, Jim was 39 years old at the time. He was working as an emergency room doctor in Indiana at St. Joseph Regional Medical Center in Mishawaka, Indiana. However, he was an avid hiker and skier. He loved going out to Colorado, more specifically Vail. So on this particular day, he had gone out to Vail with some of his friends. They were planning to do not only hiking, but various skiing. However, he was actually going to be snowboarding. He had what's called a split snowboard with him. He also had a pair of skis with him. On the morning of March 14th, 2014, Jim and his friends decided to hike from the Vail area up to the Eiseman Hut. This is a 9-mile hike over very rough terrain. It's only about 4 miles by the crow flies, whatever you say, but the hike itself is 9 miles, and it's a very coveted hike. A lot of hikers and skiers love to do this because it's challenging. When you get to the top, there's a beautiful view. I'm going to have some pictures of this, of course, to show you what I'm talking about. There are two main routes, or trails if you will, up from the Vail area to the Eiseman Hut. One is through the Spraddle Creek area, and then towards the western area is the Red Sandstone Creek. We do know that these are the possible routes. However, unfortunately, we don't know which route the team took that morning. However, it was around roughly 10 a.m. when the hikers were roughly 5 miles from the hut. They all decided to stop and rest. Like I said, this is a very, very taxing hike. Even though that they were all very experienced, Jim McGrogan was by far the most experienced. At this point, he told the rest of the group he was going to keep marching on ahead, that he would just see them at the Eiseman Hut. The group really wasn't too concerned because Dr. McGrogan was carrying with him a cell phone, medical supplies, a sleeping bag, an avalanche beacon, a GPS navigation system and messenger, warm clothing, tons of water, plus he was the most experienced of the group. Here's a map to just show you from the Vail area up to the Eiseman Hut. It's also worthy to mention that during this time there was a ton of snow on the ground, roughly 7 feet, and more snow was actually predicted on the way. They had started out their hike sort of a little bit to the east at Camp Hale. This was a place that Dr. McGrogan had always wanted to check out. It was a place where there was training for certain military professionals back in the 40s. They started there, and then they continued on up, and that led them to the point where Jim broke away on his own. It's also noteworthy to say that these trails are very well marked. There's tons of signs, and usually they're very packed down even when the snow has been heavy. Now this is a picture of the Eiseman Hut. It sits at an elevation of 11,180 feet. It's just a small hut, but I can see why people would want to hike up there. This is another angle. It's a beautiful hut inside. I'll give you some pictures on the inside as well. There's beautiful views. It's very rustic inside. It's got a wood burning stove, a bunch of different little cots, bed type things, and it can fit a bunch of skiers. So it would be a very nice thing to get up to this place, have your hike, then look out over these breathtaking, awe-inspiring views. Here's a view out of the eastern side of the hut. It was getting kind of late in the day. By around 5:30 p.m., Jim's friends were getting very concerned at this point. Despite them knowing that he was very experienced, they decided not to take any chances, and they called the Vail Police Department. The Vail Police Department immediately got involved. However, because of the snow, they needed reinforcements. They brought in the Eagle Valley Sheriff's Department. Between these two agencies, the rescue operation had begun. They started with roughly 18 square miles in and around the area of the hut, areas that the other hikers told them that they had been hiking and what their plans were. They notified all the local ski patrol. However, even after speaking with their friends, the authorities felt like Dr. McGrogan probably wasn't in any danger. After a few days, they still hadn't found any evidence. They brought in the National Guard's High Altitude Aviation Team. This is based fairly close in Gibson, Colorado. But even with the added air support, they still didn't find anything. By this time, of course, the story had reached the media. People were becoming more and more concerned because he did have a cell phone. He did have a GPS beacon. He had all these things that he hadn't been using. This is also around the time by day number 3 where they got the cell phone data back. From that data, they did get one ping, which of course they searched in and around that area. However, after that one ping, there was no further data from that cell phone. Of course, the story kept getting more and more coverage in the media, front page news in many situations. Everybody in the Vail area was now aware of this situation and this missing man. Everybody was on the lookout. But of course, as luck would have it, and it's often the case in these missing person cases, a huge winter storm came in and dropped several more feet of snow. Now this is the same hut after those big storms came through. You can see it was just massive and massive amounts of snow, which of course hinders investigations because it can cover evidence. It could obviously make it more dangerous for the person who's missing. They feared that Dr. McGrogan might possibly be suffering from hypothermia at this point. He might have gotten stuck somewhere. However, they were hopeful because he did have so many supplies with him. That, coupled with his experience, his medical training, they had high hopes, at least in the beginning. The search, even though it was halted by the storm, they did still go out. They got more people out there. They spent over 1,000 hours searching for Dr. McGrogan. This is over a 5-day period, including canine units, the usual helicopters, massive ground efforts. The snow, like I said, really did hamper a lot of this investigation. And unfortunately, after those 5 days, they did have to call off the search. Dr. McGrogan's family and friends were, of course, devastated. They had no answers. They had no clue of what could have possibly happened until almost 3 weeks later, 20 days to be exact. His remains were actually found by a group of another hikers and skiers on a trip very similar to what these guys were doing. It was found 4.5 miles away from the trail that they were on in this area known as Booth Falls. He was found on April 3rd of 2014. This area of Booth Falls where he was found is far to the east of the Eiseman Hut. Their first question was, how in the world did he get 4.5 miles off track? They found him lying on an ice cap that had formed over this waterfalls. Now that wasn't the strangest thing. He was found wearing his helmet. Keep that in mind. He had no jacket on, no gloves. His boots were missing. In his backpack, right next to him, they found his cell phone, which was working, and in the area where he was found, there was cell phone coverage, cell phone service. Also located right next to him was his GPS device and many other pieces of his gear, as well as his snowboard, which was within a few feet of him. However, like I said, he didn't have his boots on. This is a map just to give you an idea. The Eiseman Hut is, and then where he was eventually found. His remains were taken to the Eagle County Medical Facility. After the autopsy was completed, the medical examiner reported that he had died from injuries including head trauma, an injury to his left side. He had several broken bones, including a broken femur. However, ultimately his death was ruled an accident. This was very upsetting to his friends and family. They couldn't understand how the medical examiner could say this was an accident when he was found with his helmet on. So how did he sustain these head injuries? Why would Dr. McGrogan have taken his jacket and gloves off and his boots off? How did he get to that location? If he had done it just there after an accident had occurred, why wouldn't those items be right next to him like everything else was? His cell phone was right there with him. There was cell coverage in the area. He had his GPS device. If he had been injured, why didn't he try calling for help? Despite the authorities saying that they didn't believe there was foul play involved, many other people that have researched this case, including some of his friends and family, believe that there had to be other people involved because this doesn't make any sense. I would definitely like to hear what you guys think, your comments, your thoughts on this case. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. I'll leave all my sources in the description as always. Of course, I want to dedicate this video to Dr. Jim McGrogan, his friends and family, sending thoughts and prayers out to all of you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you all for all your amazing support, all your feedback. Special thank you to co.ag for providing the background music. I will see you all in the next one. Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me to the end. So today's video's backpacking tip is water filtration. Now if you're using something like a Sawyer Squeeze or a Be Free and you're using a scoop bag to scoop up your water, I'll have a picture of what I'm talking about. Make sure that before you start filtering into your clean bottles, you wipe that bag off, or that bottle, whatever you're using the filter on, wipe that off before you start filtering into your clean bottles, because it only takes 1 or 2 drops of bad water for you to contract something like Giardia or something like that. Alright everyone, I'd definitely like to hear your backpacking tips. If you have any thoughts and suggestions, things that you've learned over the years, please definitely let me know your thoughts on this case. I just find it so perplexing. Yes, I know that they came to the conclusion that it was just an accident, but there's just so many questions. How did he get 4.5 miles away from his intended destination when he was the most experienced of the group? He had all those supplies. Why didn't he call somebody? How did he get head injuries while wearing a helmet? Where were all his clothes, his boots, his jacket, his gloves?